Front page of the Sun newspaper, royal exclusive, Fergie time. Sarah Ferguson, formerly the Duchess of York, of course, is considering offers for a tell-all TV interview in the wake of her public downfall.
So she might be angry about that as well. You really don't want an angry Fergie.
No, and the issue you've got is her security as well, because, yes, she's now become an obscure figure within royal circles, but she's one of the most recognisable women in the world.
No official announcement, no emotional goodbye outside the palace gates, no carefully staged royal photographs marking the end of an era. Instead, there were only whispers, nervous glances, and a silence so calculated it almost sounded louder than words themselves. So what really happened during Sarah Ferguson's final days connected to Royal Lodge? And if everything about her departure was supposedly normal, why did it reportedly unfold with the tension and secrecy of a private escape instead of a simple move from one home to another? According to royal insiders, Sarah Ferguson's exit was not just quiet. It allegedly felt like the monarchy was slowly erasing an entire chapter of royal history while the public watched in total confusion. And honestly, that is where this entire situation starts feeling deeply uncomfortable. Because while Prince Andrew continued appearing publicly around Windsor almost like nothing had changed, casually walking the estate grounds, greeting people, and maintaining a visible presence, Sarah Ferguson seemed to disappear almost overnight. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Andrew stayed publicly visible, almost defiant in the way he carried on as normal. Sarah, meanwhile, faded from public sight so suddenly that royal commentators openly started questioning whether the palace wanted all attention surrounding her to quietly disappear altogether.
Whatever else Sarah Ferguson may be, there is no doubt that she has always been a survivor, the kind of woman who picks herself up, dusts herself down, and gets back on the horse. Until it transpires that she has some kind of criminal case to answer, I can see her making a comeback.
Fergie must go it alone, and I said that's an expensive mistake, because for the sake of a few million quid, he could have taken care of Fergie, at which point the family secrets remain just that.
But according to insiders, what was happening behind closed doors was far more serious than a normal change of address. Sources claimed the atmosphere felt more like a rapid dismantling of the old York world piece by piece behind the scenes. Royal Lodge, the enormous 30-room Windsor estate long tied to Prince Andrew's royal identity, reportedly stopped feeling like a safe refuge for Sarah Ferguson as pressure surrounding the family intensified. And according to palace observers, the message coming from royal circles had become painfully obvious. Whatever protection once surrounded the York family was allegedly running out fast. Unlike Prince Andrew, Sarah Ferguson held no official royal position, no formal palace-backed role, and no guaranteed future residence protected by the institution itself. Insiders claimed that left her emotionally exhausted, publicly exposed, and financially vulnerable while remaining trapped inside controversies tied to the York family that simply refused to disappear no matter how many years passed. At the same time, King Charles reportedly faced increasing pressure over one major question that had followed the monarchy for years. If authorities or investigators ever formally requested cooperation involving Prince Andrew, would the palace comply?
Breaking right now, Sarah Ferguson, the former Duchess of York, make us feel sorry for Fergie. For us to believe that Fergie is actually just a good woman who didn't really try and sell her husband to the fake sheikh for £500,000. Kind and gentle Fergie. We need to find this woman, okay? Because she is a big part in whether there is ever justice in this case. And as I have always said, by the way, if Andrew and Fergie have done nothing wrong, then just speak to the authorities in the United Kingdom and the United States.
According to reports, the king's response was cautious but extremely revealing. Sources claimed palace figures quietly signaled that cooperation would indeed happen if necessary. And according to royal commentators, that statement carried enormous significance because it suggested something much larger was shifting behind the scenes. The monarchy reportedly could no longer afford to appear defensive, overly protective, or emotionally tied to old scandals after years of public criticism and non-stop pressure from both media and the public. But perhaps the most unsettling detail of all was this. Reports cited by the Daily Mail claimed Sarah Ferguson had allegedly begun privately preparing for the possibility of losing Royal Lodge weeks before any final decision became public. And insiders say that preparation revealed she may have understood long before everyone else that the end was already coming. Yet instead of openly packing her belongings or making a carefully managed public exit the way royal controversies are usually handled, Sarah Ferguson reportedly moved through the situation almost like she was trying not to be seen at all. According to insiders, her movements became increasingly discreet during the weeks surrounding her departure from Royal Lodge. Sources claimed she avoided photographers whenever possible, limited public appearances, and quietly entered and exited the estate to avoid further media attention. But one alleged detail shocked royal watchers more than anything else. A source reportedly claimed Sarah was sometimes transported while lying flat across the back seats of vehicles simply to avoid being photographed entering or leaving the property. Not confidently walking through the gates, not smiling for cameras, not giving statements, hiding. And according to commentators, that image feels especially sad when compared to the woman the public once knew. Because Sarah Ferguson built her reputation on being loud, funny, emotional, energetic, and almost impossible to silence. She rarely appeared afraid of cameras and often seemed more comfortable in the spotlight than many other royals around her. That is exactly why insiders say the contrast now feels so dramatic and unsettling. The reports paint the picture of someone who may have realized the royal institution was no longer willing or perhaps no longer able to shield her from growing controversy. Then another major issue reportedly intensified anxiety inside palace circles even further. Fresh documents connected to Jeffrey Epstein resurfaced publicly, dragging old names and controversial associations back into headlines once again.
I know the secret behind Fergie's disappearance and exactly why no one can find her. And she went on, what I do know about her, however, is that unlike Andrew, who cuts a sad, lonely figure abandoned by all who once knew him and dependent on the kindness of his brother, who is not so secretly furious with him, Fergie still has a close coterie of friends on whom she can rely.
Fergie, on the other hand, a loose cannon. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because she's always, in a way, been something of a thorn in the side of the royal family.
Sarah Ferguson leeching off rich people is nothing new. And I can only assume the reason she's still being hosted is because she wasn't behaving badly alone. She's consistent, I'll give her that. She consistently shows disgraceful behavior. She has had millions and millions of pounds go through her bank account.
Although Prince Andrew remained the central focus of scrutiny, commentators noted that any renewed public discussion connected to Epstein inevitably pulled Sarah Ferguson's past associations back into conversation as well. And according to royal observers, perception inside the monarchy often becomes just as important as proven facts themselves. Once damaging associations start resurfacing publicly, palace insiders say the institution usually reacts quickly and quietly to contain reputational fallout. Invitations reportedly disappear. Access becomes limited. Doors slowly close. Silence replaces visibility. And according to sources, that exact pattern appears to be what unfolded here. Now, insiders claim Sarah Ferguson exists in an incredibly uncomfortable position, caught somewhere between royal relevance and complete isolation. Prince Andrew still occasionally appears around Windsor, seemingly determined to preserve some sense of normal life despite years of controversy surrounding him. Sarah, meanwhile, has reportedly faded almost entirely from public view, losing not just royal comfort, but public visibility itself. And according to many royal commentators, that may ultimately be the most unsettling part of the entire story. Not simply that Sarah Ferguson reportedly lost Royal Lodge, but the cold and quiet way everything allegedly unfolded behind closed doors. Almost like an entire royal chapter was being sealed shut piece by piece before the public even realized it was ending. But insiders claim the real panic inside palace walls reportedly exploded after newly surfaced correspondence allegedly mentioned Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie in ways that deeply unsettled senior royals. Because the second the York daughters became linked to the wider conversation, everything allegedly changed behind the scenes. According to sources, the crisis immediately stopped being viewed as only Prince Andrew's problem. Suddenly, insiders claimed the controversy threatened to spread into the next generation of the royal family itself. And inside the monarchy, that changes the entire game fast. Royal observers said the references landed inside palace circles like warning alarms going off behind closed doors. Senior figures allegedly began viewing the situation as something capable of causing long-term reputational damage far beyond Andrew alone. At the same time, tensions around Windsor were reportedly already getting worse by the day. Sources claimed King Charles had grown increasingly uncomfortable watching Prince Andrew continue appearing publicly around royal properties, almost like the scandal surrounding him no longer mattered. To regular people watching from the outside, it may have looked stubborn, disconnected, or even tone-deaf. But according to insiders, palace officials allegedly viewed those appearances as a massive reputational risk unfolding directly in front of cameras. And the timing could not have been worse for the monarchy. The royal family was already dealing with growing political pressure, public criticism, and non-stop scrutiny, while renewed conversations surrounding Andrew's former role as trade envoy reportedly dragged old controversies straight back into headlines once again. Even without shocking new revelations, commentators claimed the return of those discussions alone was enough to create serious anxiety behind palace walls. Because inside royal life, public perception can become even more dangerous than legal outcomes themselves. And according to insiders, that may explain why everything suddenly started moving so quickly afterward. Reports soon began circulating that urgent private discussions allegedly took place between King Charles and Prince William at Sandringham shortly before events surrounding Royal Lodge suddenly accelerated. And according to royal observers, Sandringham is not the place where casual family conversations happen. It is where major decisions about the future of the monarchy are quietly discussed far away from cameras, headlines, and public attention. Sources claimed that by this stage, senior royals may have believed they were rapidly losing control of the entire York situation altogether. Then came the move that reportedly shocked palace watchers the most. According to reports, Andrew and Sarah were allegedly instructed to leave Royal Lodge much earlier and much faster than originally expected. Not through a slow transition. Not through a carefully staged royal relocation. Fast. One report even suggested Prince Andrew was effectively pushed to vacate sections of the property late at night before the packing process had even fully finished. And according to commentators, if those claims are accurate, the situation no longer resembles a normal move at all. Instead, it starts looking far more like an emergency retreat carried out under enormous pressure behind closed doors. According to insiders, what happened at Royal Lodge reportedly stopped feeling like a traditional royal relocation and began feeling more like a removal, a final separation designed to avoid delays, emotional negotiations, or any possible resistance once the decision had already been made inside palace walls. And if Prince Andrew's reported departure appeared tense and chaotic, Sarah Ferguson's situation allegedly looked equally heartbreaking. Sources claimed staff inside Royal Lodge were left facing scenes that resembled the aftermath of abandonment rather than a polished royal transition. Furniture reportedly sat hidden beneath dust sheets. Packing crates were stacked across rooms. Pale marks allegedly remained on walls where family photographs and artwork had hung for years. According to commentators, the atmosphere no longer reflected wealth, privilege, or royal glamour. It looked more like a household being dismantled in panic than a graceful royal exit. A rushed retreat. A chapter ending far messier than the palace wanted the public to see. And while some observers still argue Prince Andrew has been treated unfairly and continue insisting not everyone around him was involved in wrongdoing, insiders claimed palace thinking had already moved beyond questions of fairness entirely. According to sources, the institution's main focus reportedly became survival, containment, and reputation management above everything else. Especially once Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie's names allegedly started resurfacing inside renewed conversations surrounding the wider controversy. Because according to royal observers, the moment daughters become connected to scandal, everything changes emotionally inside the monarchy. Embarrassment reportedly turns into fear almost instantly. And slowly, Royal Lodge itself allegedly transformed from a symbol of royal privilege into something far sadder. An empty shell filled with cardboard boxes, fading memories, and silence. Even the smallest details from inside the estate reportedly carried strange emotional weight. Prince Andrew's famous teddy bear collection, mocked publicly for years and whispered about privately behind palace doors, was allegedly among the first personal belongings quietly packed away into storage. Some insiders reportedly believed that decision reflected an attempt to erase traces of personal history before the public fully understood how serious the situation had allegedly become. But one bizarre detail kept resurfacing in conversations surrounding the move. According to reports, a stuffed monkey was allegedly left behind inside the property while much of the rest of the collection disappeared. It sounds strange, almost unbelievable. Yet insiders repeatedly brought it up because it seemed to symbolize something unexpectedly human beneath all the scandal, pressure, and palace drama. a comfort object abandoned inside a house that no longer felt emotionally safe. And according to sources, the emotional atmosphere inside Royal Lodge reportedly became even darker as the final days slowly unfolded. Insiders claimed Prince Andrew spent long stretches wandering through hallways alone, looking increasingly isolated and frustrated as pressure surrounding the family kept building. The estate that once symbolized privilege, protection, and royal status allegedly started feeling less like a luxury home and more like a silent cage closing in around him. Sarah Ferguson, meanwhile, was reportedly struggling emotionally in her own way. Sources claimed she began seeking refuge far away from cameras and public attention, sometimes retreating to a discreet local spot nicknamed the Doghouse, where she allegedly held private conversations with close friends and trusted staff members. And according to insiders, the fear surrounding Sarah reportedly stopped being only about bad headlines. It allegedly became about survival and uncertainty once the protection connected to Royal Lodge disappeared completely. Sources claimed life inside the estate during its final chapter no longer resembled a united partnership. Instead, it reportedly looked more like two people quietly trying to survive under the same roof while everything around them slowly collapsed. According to insiders, Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson largely lived separate lives inside the massive property, staying in different sections of the estate and interacting only occasionally during meals or necessary conversations. And according to reports, those conversations increasingly revolved around one thing: the future. But insiders claimed there was very little optimism left inside the house by that stage. The atmosphere reportedly became consumed by tension, uncertainty, and growing anxiety over what would happen once Royal Lodge was no longer available to them. Sarah Ferguson in particular was described by sources as emotionally overwhelmed during this period. According to commentators, she allegedly feared losing Royal Lodge would also mean losing the final sense of stability and identity she still held onto after years of public embarrassment, controversy, and personal struggles. Then, almost immediately after leaving, Sarah seemed to vanish almost completely from public view, and that disappearance triggered a storm of speculation across tabloids and social media. Some observers believed she may have quietly left Britain altogether, following what royal commentators described as a familiar pattern throughout her life, stepping away from public attention whenever pressure became too overwhelming. Rumored destinations quickly exploded online: Thailand, Switzerland, Mustique, luxury islands, private retreats, different locations, but always carrying the same message: escape. Then reports suddenly linked Sarah Ferguson to Richard Branson's famous Necker Island, although representatives reportedly denied those claims shortly afterward. But according to insiders, by then, the rumors had already spread far beyond control. And underneath all the gossip about possible hideaways sat another deeply uncomfortable issue: money. Despite decades of royal visibility and public assumptions of enormous wealth, reports suggested Sarah Ferguson's financial situation had allegedly been far less secure than many people believed. According to commentators, discussions surrounding her finances created a strange contradiction. A woman associated for years with royal luxury, while privately struggling with debt problems and financial instability behind closed doors. But even those concerns were eventually overshadowed by something far more damaging: the resurfacing of old Epstein-related communications. Reports described some messages connected to Sarah Ferguson as deeply embarrassing, with critics claiming they portrayed her as heavily dependent on financial support and attention from Jeffrey Epstein during difficult periods of her life. And according to royal observers, that association has reportedly become almost impossible for the monarchy to completely distance itself from. But the most disturbing allegations allegedly involved Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie themselves. New discussions surrounding old claims suggested Prince Andrew may have shared family photographs involving his daughters during his association with Epstein. Even inside a royal family long surrounded by scandal, insiders claimed those allegations landed like a complete shockwave through palace circles. Then, renewed attention reportedly turned toward old emails and communications critics described as careless, overly familiar, and deeply uncomfortable when viewed through the lens of everything that happened afterward. And according to commentators, by the time those materials returned to public conversation, the reputational damage allegedly felt impossible to fully contain anymore. For Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, insiders claimed the entire situation became emotionally draining, humiliating, and deeply painful behind closed doors. According to sources, the sisters reportedly felt trapped inside a controversy they neither created nor controlled. Insiders claimed they became increasingly frustrated watching their names repeatedly dragged back into headlines connected to decisions made by others around them. One especially personal email reportedly resurfaced around the time of Eugenie's 20th birthday, written in a tone critics later described as unusually familiar and deeply uncomfortable once viewed through the context of later events. And according to royal commentators, that personal familiarity is exactly what unsettled people the most. Not formal royal language, not distant politeness. Personal closeness that suddenly became extremely difficult to publicly explain once old associations returned to headlines again. Sources claim the sisters were left confronting painful questions, not only about what may have happened behind closed doors years earlier, but also about what the public now assumes they may have known all along. And perhaps that is why one reported comment from a close friend of Princess Eugenie reportedly hit royal circles so hard. It is a never-ending mess. Because according to many observers, that single sentence may describe the entire York family saga better than anything else ever has. For Sarah Ferguson, the issue reportedly stopped being only about scandal a long time ago. It allegedly became something much heavier: survival, damaged reputation, fractured family relationships, and the nearly impossible challenge of rebuilding public trust, while old controversies continue resurfacing over and over again. And maybe that is exactly why the silence surrounding Royal Lodge still feels so eerie even now. No emotional farewell, no carefully staged royal goodbye. Just closed curtains, rushed departures in the middle of the night, empty hallways, and a family reportedly trying to outrun shadows that refuse to disappear. What do you think? Has the York family been treated unfairly by both the public and the palace? Or did years of controversy make this ending impossible to avoid? And honestly, this entire situation still leaves behind more questions than answers. From the silence surrounding Royal Lodge to the growing distance between the York family and the monarchy, the whole story feels less like a normal royal transition and more like a chapter the palace desperately wants people to forget. But in today's world, secrets rarely stay buried forever. What do you think really happened behind closed doors? Drop your thoughts below, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next royal drama story.